Oh, man.
Session was called to order and roll call, please.
Moore,
Here.
Mike Thomas,
Here.
Bob Thomas,
Here.
Shawno,
Here.
Berger,
Here.
Carter,
Here via Zoom.
and Liskus is absent.
I'd like to welcome visitors. Looks like we have about 4 on Zoom and all our administrators here. This is the time for public forums. Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up to the board? I think that is no. All right, need a motion to approve the agenda? So move. Second. Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved minutes of previous meetings, those are in your packets.
Motion to approve the minutes? Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Old business. This is something we put off from the last meeting, I believe, with CETA, correct? Approval of CETA contracts. So they're in the package, Mark.
So this is for transporting students for our Head Start programming. This is a yearly contract that comes out.
And then was there an extra email to be included in that
Yeah, did I send that out today?
No.
No.
with the adjusting the adult price for?
Yeah. So we're just doing the one
Oh,
tonight.
that's a different feature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, I know why you're, just that adjusted in their adult price too,
Yeah,
for when they receive.
so that's not included in this.
No,
No.
Yeah, it's a second
it's
one.
it's late.
But they are affected by that too though.
Yeah.
That's why they emailed today. Good catch.
Any discussion on the approval of CETA contracts? If not, if you can make a motion.
Motion to approve the city contract? Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I did send that out. You guys did get that today, right? The second, the food contract.
I got the one,
Yeah,
I got an
okay.
email for
So I
the,
just want to make sure that that was included in
You're
the
talking about
approval.
the food thing?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
said
Okay.
about 10,
I just want to
15.
make sure that was
Yeah,
included. Okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you were on some other thing.
okay, next is the consideration of the high school edition value engineering items. These are the things we put off, a couple meetings ago, dealing with the kitchen items and the electronics for the HVAC.
So, yeah, you've got kind of 2 items here. One, so as we value engineered everything except for the dishwashing equipment out of the project, there was a lot of buyer need to purchase stuff that would come out of that. That was $417,895 that we value engineered through that. Rochelle took that information back to the contractors, and Rippey and Associates is the subcontractor that's doing the kitchen stuff for us, the dishwashing stuff. And they proposed adding the surfaces and shelving that we would need. So that would be $62,000 to at least have it where we could walk in and use the kitchen on day one with the equipment that we do already have. Otherwise, we didn't have enough prep, and Aaron, correct me if I say something wrong, because Aaron was in on this meeting and had a way better understanding than I did, admittedly. So we have enough prep surfaces, and we have enough storage surfaces, so things like shelving to store cans and all that kind of stuff. And actually, as we talked about the freezer and refrigerator. So there was a walk-in freezer and refrigerator in the original plans. These were axed with that value engineering, and to add them back in, we'd actually end up demoing a wall that had to be added to the kitchen with axing that, and then we'd have to do a ramp up into the freezer and refrigerator when we want to add it, which is less than ideal when you're taking carts full of food in and out. So it is our recommendation coming out of that meeting with Lisa, Aaron, myself, the person from OPA, and Rippey and Associates and Rochelle, to consider adding back in the prep surfaces and the freezer, refrigerator, so that it's not, a bigger expense down the road to put those in place. Plus, we do have our, what do you call it? Do you call it reach-in freezer? Am I saying that wrong?
We do have we have a reach-in freezer and a reach-in cooler that are about on its last leg.
Right, so we're currently waiting for parts for the reach-in freezer. It's not keeping things as cold as it's supposed to consistently. So we are able to get some parts to limp through for a while, but that may not last very long. So we'd likely have a chunk of that cost anyway right away to take care of that. So it's our proposal that we just go ahead and go with the thing that would be the nice service for our kids there.
And Rochelle had mentioned, because I was talking with her about it, that just the reach-in freezer alone, and this shocked me, because I hadn't looked into the prices, she said ballpark for just a reach-in freezer the same size we have now, we're looking at about $26,000, just for a reach-in freezer.
And this will be significantly bigger than that. So while it does knock off 152,000 of that original value engineering, it also makes it where we could walk in with the stuff that we have and these items and be ready to serve students on the first day of school that first year without having to buy a lot of extra stuff. We could take our stove over, our warmers or whatever over and be able to serve. Now, anything we want to do on top of that down the road is gravy, which is a great way to put it when you're talking about food services, right? But we could function right away. So we believe that would be a wise decision to consider adding those back in, which essentially would be a reduction in the amount of the value engineering to do that, if that makes any sense. Since we haven't yet approved the change order officially, because they haven't given us the change order form.
So how much are we saving after you add those things in, then
Right.
we're reducing how much?
So it would now be 265,283 in savings for FS2 on our value engineering sheet, which is an addition of, and let me word that correctly. So we're not saving 152,000. I forget how much it was. Yeah.
Okay,
And
now, I thought we were gonna sell $2 million worth of bonds, but now you're saying 1.8?
Well,
that's,
there are costs associated with that, so we wouldn't get one.
so that's the amount of cash we
Okay.
predict we'll get from
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah.
But we'll also, we always get that freebie money, whatever that is.
Yeah, but to be safe, we wanted
Yeah,
to say
okay.
that.
And that's not enough there.
We kind of went with conservative estimates there, which, hopefully things end up even better and then we're really in good shape. Or if we're cooking with gas, to stay on the theme. Sorry.
And you think that's gonna work, Lisa? I'm not doubting Thomas at this point.
Do I think what's gonna work
Like,
good?
all these numbers are gonna come together okay?
Yes, I do.
That's your job.
So,
Yeah.
quick question,
We've done a lot of consideration of that and planning.
what are we getting in this proposal then? What would our high school kitchen be getting?
A lot of countertop, a sink that we weren't, two sinks that we weren't gonna get, I think it was, wasn't it? And then the walk-in fridge and freezer.
But by cutting this, we're still not gonna have the stoves and,
No, we'll have to move over ours.
Currently we have a stove that we're in the process, it's a residential stove that was in the back storeroom at Lakeview. We're in the process right now, I'm waiting on an electrician to put in a 220 outlet down in the kitchen right now. And we're going to put that in there, and they said that would be perfectly fine for them to use. Because all you're using right now is a little hot plates.
Right.
And they said that stove will be, even down the road in the future, is perfectly acceptable.
Now that all being said, if you kind of look at the value engineering sheet, you add in the 1.8 million, even if we went with this and some amount of the controls or all of the controls, there's still some more cushion there. If we get late into the project and we know that we're not getting a lot of over excavation, we're not getting a lot of unexpected costs, we start to look at some of the asbestos abatement in the 1917 or 1940 building, whatever you decide to call it. We could look at spending some of that money then. But basically that the bonding will allow us to pull back on cash some, so we've got cash in the account, to be able to make purchases as we need them as we go. That doesn't make sense the way I said that, does it?
No, I got it.
Okay, good.
So tonight, do we need a motion on this, or is this something that will come back later with change order?
It would come back later with a change order. Really, we're kind of looking for consent to move forward with it, because these are not set like 100% perfect numbers. They're fairly approximate. Rochelle said she would get us exact numbers as we move forward, but she's kind of working with them on some of those things. I don't know that they were fully expecting us to ask a question about the freezer and the fridge. I think when we saw that and saw that there would be an additional wall constructed, and then we're gonna have to demo that, and so we kind of got to thinking, well, gosh, with the bond money, we can do this. Why would we want to build something that we're gonna demo 2 years later? So, I think that kind of took them a little bit by surprise. They're working to tighten the numbers down as they go, but this will be really close apparently. So just kind of consent to move forward, and then when the change orders come in, that's where we really do approval.
So do we want to take this, I guess, there's two items basically that we're looking at tonight on this. It's the kitchen equipment and the HVAC controls. Do we want to take each one separate with a consensus, or do we want to do both of them together?
But to keep them separate.
Seems wise.
Yeah, I would say keep them separate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have, isn't Joe gonna kind of talk on the controls?
Yep.
So I guess at this point, look for a consensus, yay or nay, on moving forward with the kitchen proposal. Mike? Everybody kind of same, I think we're on a consensus to move forward with that?
Doesn't she need to know that for plans? and-
As she plans it out, yeah, because they're finalizing their last little bit of contract stuff for us too.
Okay, we have Joe Banworth on to talk with Ferris Engineering to talk about the controls a little bit. Joe, you're up.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, so I think that we had three options they gave us out there. Obviously, the first option is to do everything, all new controls on the building. Right? That's pretty standard. Another option was to just do some of the controls on the building. That's mainly the older portion of it, like the auditorium. There's air handlers there that need new controls. A lot of stuff's outdated. That's on its last leg. Plus, we're taking some of that control components away with that demo of the building of the original building where the mechanical and the boilers are. And then there was another proposal that was to do, the science stuff and just update. So just update the science wing or
Joe, I'm gonna stop you real quick. You're cutting out a little bit on us.
Happened again, huh?
Yeah.
We have good connection here, so I'm not sure. Let's just let me check one thing here. So my video that helps it. All right. Well, and let me know if it's any better or not. So if not,
I think that's better right now.
Yeah,
anyway.
that sounded
Yeah.
better.
So let me start over here. So the way this set was set up initially was we're gonna do all new controls, right? So all the existing stuff, the auditorium gets new controls, the science wing gets new controls, the tech wing gets new controls. That's ideal. That brings everything up to space, right? Everything's up, running just perfect. All new controls and everything. Everything's tied in. The administration can get everything together. You guys get that? Is it coming through okay?
Cutting out a little bit, but I think we're making it.
So that would be the ultimate idea, to get all that up to date. So Aaron and his guys can go on and see everything at one spot. Another option was to just to update, do the bare minimum, which is just update a few of the controls so everything that's existing works. Okay. The problem with that one is a lot of those controls are obsolete, hard to get parts. It's just kind of very difficult for them to get to. So it's something that's going to come down the line eventually, and they'd be on a different platform, from my understanding. Like they can't just they have to dial in 2 different areas to look at controls. And then there's another that would be another option is just to update, you know, because the science is fairly new-ish, but they're still starting to get a hard time getting parts there as well. So my recommendation would be, obviously the idea would be go all the way with everything, but I would at least go with the updating the oldest control side of it. I think that was, I can't remember, I don't have the thing pulled up in front of me. That was one of the options. Pull that up quickly. So do you guys have questions about what they do, how they function?
And we're talking about choices M5 and M6, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So M5 would be to do everything.
Right.
M6 would be to do basically some of it. Rochelle, I see you're on here too. Do you have anything to add to this?
No, I would defer to Joe on that.
I want to tweak what you said a little bit. So M5 is actually doing just the new master and leaving all the stuff, the older stuff out for the other buildings. M6 is just doing the oldest.
Okay.
So you get the new master and you change some of it, and then not doing value engineering on it, just declining both, would be getting all new.
And what was the price for all new everything?
Yeah, that's not a category on here, is it?
Right, so if you turn both down, the current status of project is correct on the bottom of the spreadsheet in your board packet.
Okay.
So anything, and that is a positive number as it stands right there, so any value engineering that you do on this item increases that number. Now, we did just so you take 115,000 off of that positive number at the bottom of the current status of project because of what we just did for the kitchen. So that moves it into like the 900-ish range. So if they both get turned down, it doesn't change that number at all.
And we need that number, don't we?
I'm a lot more comfortable with that number now than I was before the 2 million bond. And I think, Lisa, I shouldn't say that. That's really Lisa's thing. I'm sorry, I stepped on your toes there.
No.
But I think we are a lot more comfortable now than we were prior to that.
Right, prior to getting through the timing of that process. But that's complete now, so we know that's a hard number.
I mean, I'm not dancing in the street. I mean, it's still gonna put us at 400,000 instead of 600,000 in the maintenance budget for a number of years, and still tightening our belts some, but livably tightening our belts.
Discussion?
I want to hear Mike's.
You know what? It's time to get it done. I hate to spend the money, but it's time to get it done.
So you're thinking about doing everything?
Everything.
And where are you getting that money?
Where are you getting that money?
Yeah.
Well, we got that.
We're reversing roles here.
This is fun.
We've got enough cushion, according to Mr. Taylor and his cohort there in the corner. You know, we're real early in the project, and I'm really hesitant to spend money, but I think this is money well spent.
I didn't hear that hesitancy, no, but it's okay.
And this is based on 400,000 in maintenance for several years to come.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the foreseeable
Yep.
future. And
And I think and even in our projections with, I've lost his name now, the gentleman who does our
Matt
projections.
Gillespie.
With Matt, like, he had been, I don't know if you remember from looking at those projections, he increased that number with inflation. I think we told him to leave it at a flat 400 and not increase it with inflation.
Well, I guess on this one, we're looking for a consensus to move forward as well. I'm in favor, I guess, me of doing everything. We have the funds there, let's do it right. Chris, Bob?
We have the money.
Yeah, but that's what I'm not sure about yet, yeah. I agree that this is the time to do it.
Derek, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've been torn on this one really since the get-go. But if Mark and Lisa are looking at the numbers and are feeling comfortable with it, you build new and mix it with old, you're still gonna have your old problems. So, I would be okay with it, replacing it all at this point.
I think we have a consensus
Yeah.
to move forward with basically doing everything. Joe, Rochelle, thank you very much. Appreciate you tuning in tonight and helping us out.
You're welcome, thank you.
I think it's important to make
Haven't
sure.
that Jimmy guy that was on there at the beginning.
Yeah, he left us.
Yeah.
I think it's important to make sure that we know, again, that $2 million bond is not a property tax bond, it's a sales tax bond. It's like money we were already receiving from the state, we're just getting it earlier, essentially. So it will not increase anybody's taxes or anything. I want to make sure that's real clear that we don't want to just increase property taxes to be able to pay for things. This is not that kind of money.
All right, we'll move on to new business. Approve the return to learn plan. Mark, if you can.
Yeah, so the return to learn plan that is on the district's website is from when the district first returned from the governor's shutdown that spring that COVID first hit. State law requires that it be reevaluated and updated every 6 months from its creation. This has been a long 6 months since 2020. So this is a revision of the same materials, just put into a little more user-friendly, eye-pleasing format, I think. And we took it to our SIAC committee to get some public comment on it. And we're bringing it to you for approval so we can update it on our website and be in compliance. This should be the last time that we have to take it to the board. If you don't need to make a change, then you don't have to take it to the board and you don't have to do any public comment. I sure hope that we're not really talking a lot about return to learn plans between now and when this sunsets, which is the end of next September. If we are, then obviously we'll collect public feedback and come to the board, but hopefully this is the last time you'll have to approve a return to learn plan in your lifetimes.
Okay, how much money do we have in that fund for return to learn? The money we got,
The ESSER
Oh,
3
the
funds.
ESSER funds
what, yeah, ESSER fund, yeah, 20% had to go for
for
this kind of.
learning loss.
Yeah, so how much money do we have there yet? Roughly? I'm sorry, I was gonna call you separately. Tell you I was gonna ask that question.
I'll have to get back with you, I don't wanna give you a number and be off on that. We
So-
haven't spent it all yet,
Right.
so.
Okay,
And so we did, for ESSER 3 alone, the district got $2,894,446 over the course of 3 years. That has to be spent, and I wanna say by 2024,
Yes.
right? So that has to be spent the next couple of years, so, in here, it talks a little bit about what we've spent it on. Some of the HVAC projects have tapped into that money a little bit to improve air quality in the buildings. Some mental health supports for students, to overcome concerns related to the pandemic. additional nursing staff throughout the duration of the pandemic, and some student tutoring, summer school, and additional staffing and supplies to make up for learning loss.
It's at bottom bullet that I want to make sure there's enough money for those programs. Maybe you'll tell me later, huh?
Yeah.
But those are big ones, so that's a good thing to make out.
Any further discussion?
Motion to approve the return to learn plan.
Second.
Is that there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, we'll move to approve SiAC recommendations.
So I don't know if these words have been used before in the state of Iowa or anywhere, but we had a blast at our SiAC committee meeting, and we had some great instructional conversations. We had some representatives of parents and teachers, and a lot of us admin that were able to make it. Our goal is to increase the number of parents the next time that we meet, which we're aiming for March. We had some great conversations around our early literacy data, some conversations around our math data. We have some recommendations to look at what we do for screening for math, to go back to the admin team. We looked at our graduation rates, which actually are ahead of the state average. And one area where I really want to celebrate is that our graduation rate, particularly for students on free and reduced lunch, is significantly higher than that at the state level. And I really attribute that to our staff's ability to recognize when kids have needs, when things just don't automatically work out for them because they don't have everything. They're ready to step up and they're ready to do the right thing to take care of kids' needs. So I thought that was huge. We do have recommendations for 2 goals, and these go into the comprehensive school improvement plan, which we submit to the state. The early literacy long-range goal is by the year 2025, 80% of students in grades K-6 will be at or above benchmark on the FAST literacy assessment. And this was determined because that aligns with our, we call it MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support mentality. Generally, what we're told is that if your core instruction is good, 80% of the students should be able to be proficient on that material, and then the additional 20% you intervene for to help them get to where you want them to be. So we set that 80% as a goal to say that our core instruction is doing what we want for our students by 2025. Our literacy annual goal is by the winter of 2023, 66% of students will be at or above benchmark on the FAST literacy assessment. And we actually set that by looking at the trend line for what our data has done. We had been in that range. I think we were at 67, if I remember right. The testing window right before COVID hit, and then we came back in the low 50s, which was a huge drop for us as a district. Each year, the district has kind of made about 3 points of growth, 3 percentage points of growth back up, and this would give us 2 years of 3 percentage points of growth. So it was kind of an attainable goal that we thought would keep us going on the right path to get back to where we were and then beyond.
Questions or discussions?
Yeah, that Roman number of 5 seemed to be a gathering of nothingness. So what needs did the people in your committee suggest were not being met by our what did they call them? Our advanced students?
So
What did they want that we don't have?
So this came out of conversation with some of our parent committee members, which is great. And just an understanding of helping to make sure that advanced students or students who, let me take a step back and say that this really is about what we call question 4 in our PLCs, professional learning communities. So we essentially are based around 4 questions in education. One is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? So that's how we set our standards. How do we know that they're able to do it? So how do we assess that? What do we do if they don't know it? So what interventions are we providing for those students who are struggling? And the question that schools have so often struggled to meet is, what do we do if a student already knows it? So how do we enhance that learning for those students? I mean, I think, for me, I think of things like, and you and I have had some great conversations about Model UN throughout this year, and I think things like that where we're giving students some real life experiences. We're thinking a little more globally with learning for kids, that it's not so much about getting the concept, but it's about how do you apply that. So it's building a little bit more rigor in for kids who are ready for that. And we did talk a little bit about social emotional needs, which might be the part that I think maybe you're catching there. And that was just around the idea that sometimes some students who are gifted can get into a very fixed mindset that if I don't get something right away, it might mean that I'm not smart in that area, and building a growth mindset. So Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. It's been a number of years now ago, but it was kind of all the rage about 4 years ago, I'd say, in education. Like, everybody was reading Carol Dweck. Everybody loved Carol Dweck, and that was the thing to talk about. And, there's a really good curriculum for tag teachers to use to help break down kind of that barrier. Where you think of, there's a lot of times that smart kid who thinks if it doesn't come to them really easily, and this is gonna come across as arrogant. I don't mean to be arrogant. I was that kid in school. If it didn't come to me easily, then it probably wasn't something I was gonna care about, because everything kind of came to me pretty easily at that point. And so we're trying to help build kids who have a little bit of resiliency in that realm, so that they can innovate outside of just those comfort zones. So this is something that we think that we can kind of bring in. There's some materials out there. We're early in talking about it, but that was a good conversation topic, I think, with the people gathered around that table. Yeah, Terry.
One thing that we started doing, I believe, not this academic year, but 2 years ago, with the leadership of our tag teacher, Taylor Russo at the time, we started accelerating some students. I think you probably remember that. We talked a little bit about if a student was scoring in, that 98th, 99th percentile on the Iowa State, testing, and they were showing themselves to be proficient in that curriculum, why would we continue to leave them sitting there with their 4th grade peers in math when we know they've already shown, just like Mark said, they've already shown that they understand that level. Let's get them engaged at that next level. So we do have a number of students. Last year we took a young man twice a day to Howard to participate in 6th grade reading and 6th grade math and 6th grade tag. We're actually, we scheduled it so that he only went twice a day, but this year we have a number of 4th graders who are attending 5th grade. We have a 3rd grader who's attending a 4th grade class, and so we never really did that kind of thing prior. So I really do, I feel good about that, and that kind of came from the work that the board allowed us to do. We had a number of years there where we saw our tag students weren't growing a year. We weren't giving them enough to get them moving. So our data encouraged us to get together and say, what can we do to move our highest learners just as well as what we do to make sure we're moving our lowest learners. So.
And what's important about what Terry said there is, I think, if you heard, going for a class to 5th grade or going for a class to 4th grade. So it's recognizing that sometimes people might be strong in this area and not as strong in that area, and that maybe there's different skills that we want to boost up for kids. And I think, often schools catch themselves like, either I'm trying to build the next college professor or whatever, but we're looking at different skills that kids have and trying to boost their skills where they are. And I think it's just doing that overall program there. And this is something that was probably always in the pipeline for education. I'm just glad that we're having those conversations. I don't know that all the solutions are in place yet, but we're talking about it.
We also have a student that was that Taylor identified as twice exceptional, which is something we've never done before. And what that means is they're as recognized with a disability as well as being gifted, and that's real. You can have a disability and still be gifted. So she moved us forward in time in that area. So.
And I think the key piece there, again, like what you said, is we recognize that just because academically I'm ready for that, I still socially, emotionally might not be ready for that age group. You know, I can participate in that curriculum, but I'm still a 9-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, this is still my peer group, but I am ready for that. So we really created that flexibility. It's been a good teamwork. It's gone up and down both levels and all of them.
And I won't say that we've got all the solutions together yet. I think we're just putting our eye on it. We're trying to make everything just a little bit better for every one of our students with that. And I'll admit, like, I probably changed the way that our note taker wrote that, and it made it more confusing and more gobbledygooky in that last paragraph on there. So I kind of take blame for that not coming out very well. But it was a good conversation. Honestly, it was a blast. It was really fun.
One of the things that I know when a couple of my kids went through high school, I don't know if we offer it anymore, was that ACT prep course. My kids got a lot out of that, and it showed where they needed to work harder, I guess. I don't know if the school was able to get results from that, or if that was just strictly family, getting those results, but is there anything like that we do have right now?
We don't offer the class anymore. I know last year we had our math tutor took on some of that. ACT prep, he would work with kids, he would schedule kids to come work with him. He's in a different role this year, but he has told us that he would still like to do that, so.
I think those are the kind of conversations we're talking about, like what are some good things that we can do to support our kids, and really it's all about creating, when we say high rigor in education, we don't necessarily mean high difficulty. I think that's an easy confusion with the word rigor. What we mean is a high level of thinking, so instead of just recalling simple facts, we're able to process a little bit more, we're able to work with the information in front of us and synthesize new ideas based on that information, and looking for ways that we can build that rigor into our curriculum and into our courses for our students is going to be really important for us in this area of meeting kind of all the kids' needs throughout the gamut.
You were talking earlier, there's a graduate of Centerville High School, his PhD, much to my surprise, I guess, and he teaches only PhD students, kind of a thing, and he said he could only give A's, that they would just go bonkers if he gave a B. So you just keep giving them a paper back over and over again until it gets to the A level kind of thing. But he said you could never give them a B because that would be total failure for them. It's kind of sick.
Yeah, that is. And that's that mindset piece.
Yeah,
To kind of speak personal anecdote, and thank goodness high school kids don't watch board meetings because my daughter would kill me for sharing this story. We discovered in 4th grade that she had a really bad anxiety problem, and it was actually her tag teacher that discovered it because she was talking to her, and she said, well, I just know that I can't answer in class because if I would give the wrong answer, then all the kids are going to say, you're one of the smart kids, how could you get a wrong answer? And that's the case for so many of our gifted students, and that's where that mindset work is so important. Now, hopefully no high school kids hear that bit, and then Katie will be embarrassed, and I'll be in trouble.
But in terms of learning stuff and using it, in the social studies there, we used to have a few kids went to model legislature, there was a mock trial, and there was another one of those things. But when you reduce staff, you can't, when you have 5 social studies teachers, you can do those things. When you have 3, there's just no way that some of that stuff can be done, including Model UN. Right?
Yeah. But those are some great rigor pieces, because what you were doing is you were having students synthesize that information based off of some facts that they had.
Could that be done as an added duty contract, though?
Those were added duty things, yeah.
Yeah.
The other really, really good program is the, what's that called? The Peace, what's the thing in Des Moines with agriculture and
World Food Prize.
World Food Prize, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not getting the right kids in that program. Because if kids are good, they write a paper and they present it to other kids and experts look at it and so on. But we've had, Patty at the junior high's son, what's his name? Troy. He went to Nigeria for 6 weeks, all expenses paid, including a ticket in case there was a revolution, you could get out.
Oh my.
We've had a-
Oh my.
We've had Liz Wagner, who went to, I believe, Indonesia, the same thing, had a ticket to, I got everything paid for to go over there. And now she's getting grants from places, and there's those islands of the Pacific that are sinking, and she got a grant from the NEA to go, well, it got delayed 2 years, I gotta call her to see if she's still doing it, did it this time. But then we had students who wrote essays who were afraid to leave the United States.
Sure.
And we gotta pick the right kids in that program who can take advantage of some of those really good opportunities.
That being said, we do have some food insecurity right in our own backyard.
Yep, that's true.
That we can watch for with some of that too, and I think, as we look to build those programs and give support to those programs, I think thinking about that kind of thing and the opportunities for our students is gonna be really important.
Any further discussion, questions? Not, take a motion.
So move we approve these minutes, I guess, is that what we're doing?
Recommendations.
Second.
Yeah, motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, item C, appoint board member delegate for delegate assembly, Bob, since everyone's going, I guess, is there anyone that wants to do this? Or is interested in doing this?
Okay, I have interest, but this is what you guys should think about, that I'm not running for reelection. So you should maybe get somebody who goes this year, and then the next year, assuming they were able to get reelected, would kind of have more clue what's going on. It's kind of a fake delegate assembly, it's all semi-rigged, it doesn't matter if you're there or not. People are reading little cards, I support this, or they're just reading off a thing that's.
So can you explain, I guess, to those of us that haven't been in, what do you actually do during this?
Okay, we chose these issues here, what our important things are, and those are all put together, and then you're approving those, and people can make amendments and changes them and so forth. And it's kind of a half a day of going through approving our, what's that called, statement of beliefs or resolutions, whatever it is, which are important sometimes when you're talking to the press. The school board is, I know this from the ISCA point of view, when you have those resolutions, those people can get called about weird topics, and you can look at that little thing and find answers to state your organization's point of view. And that's part of the reason an organization would have the statement of beliefs, I guess.
Do they do the legislative priorities with that group too? Do they one of those?
I think so, but
I couldn't remember. I know I read about it. I couldn't remember how they did that.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because Marty one time jumped in there and brought up something that was on the list and got it approved, yeah, that is true.
So there's all of us here, except for Kevin as well, so. But if anyone is interested, by all means.
I'll do all that needs to be done for the team.
We have volunteers.
Or were you proposing that you'd be willing to do it and have somebody come along to learn
No,
about?
I'm suggesting somebody else can.
Okay.
Derek, are you interested in that?
Sure.
There you go.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that, or do we just?
Yeah, we have to do.
Okay, we would need a
And
motion
we were supposed to approve this person by the 9th,
to get it
For the
to.
special election.
because there's that Zoom thing.
Mhm.
Okay, they can get off something over here. This Zoom meeting, are you up on that, Mark?
It was about the,
National, let's see,
I'm trying to remember what it's.
National School Board Association. And there must be something wrong with that group that Iowa might not want to join that group, or we might join another group. So I think the Constitution or something says we will join that group, and now it's being changed, we will join a national group, but I don't know what's wrong with.
So it's around, and I don't know the exact details, so I don't like, this is not to be quote worthy, but it's around a letter that was sent by that organization that called out some parent groups as domestic terrorists.
Okay, I said I've never had
And
any
it
idea.
was-
Hey, Mark. So I did find that email. I got that pulled up. It is tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Is that Zoom meeting. So the registration did close on the 9th, so I don't know if there's a way we can still get in that or not.
I don't think it matters if we're there or not, they're gonna
Okay.
pass it.
We'll call and find out for you, Derek.
We're not talking about real democracy.
Okay, so at this point, we would need a motion and a second to appoint Derek Carter as our delegate.
I make a motion to appoint Derek Carter.
Sorry.
Everybody was jumping on that. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Derek.
Okay, now, Mark, are we in District 5 or District 6? I think the little
You got
map
cut off
doesn't
down
go
there.
down. What?
You got cut off.
Yeah. I think we're in 5, I'm almost sure we're in 5.
I don't know.
I think 6 is to the to the east of us, I think.
Probably
I'm
at the
thinking
Dave's
we're at
count.
8.
8, that's our official district.
Hey, there's another,
Is there another?
there's another page?
Is there?
Yeah, that's the top half of
Well,
5 is here.
oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, mine is way up there.
Oh, yeah.
This did get way
Yeah, we're
down.
definitely 8.
We're at 8,
I
okay.
think. Boy, that's pretty fair. We are 4 counties west of the Mississippi River, but that looks like a long way from the Mississippi River.
I drove it a few times this summer moving here, and it feels like a long ways still.
Okay, yeah,
All right.
I think 8 is probably right. And sometimes you'll be Derek, you'll be electing people if it's our year. I don't know if they do odd one year, anyway, you'll be electing somebody to be the regional or the district delegate, I guess. And I don't know what they do either.
It's a monarchy.
All right, moving on to item D, approved library contract sharing agreements. Mark has a little.
So this is sharing agreement with Sheraton Schools for the librarian that we were able to track down for our school district down in Carlson. Later in the meeting, it's kind of backwards, just the way that board agendas work. You have her contract in your contracts for approval. We are asking for her to be approved at 1/10 FTE. And she will be shared about equally with Sheraton. Sheraton is paying just a tiny bit more for their half of her time than us because we get kind of a finder's fee out of that. So kind of makes it a little bit sweeter deal for us, but a sweet deal for them because they also don't get in trouble on their state reporting for not having a librarian.
Motion to approve the library contract. Sure.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Item E, approve Timberline billing services, or billing service addendum. Mark or Lisa, I guess?
This is our Medicaid company.
Yes. They're gonna be doing a little bit more of the administrative functions, and, the difference will be we'll be paying 8% instead of 6%, but, I think it's well worth it for the
And-
extra money that they're gonna help us find.
Right, and part of the reason for that is obviously Rhonda is our special education director and was last year, and she has a little bit different duties this year outside of the special education side that take up a little bit more time, so we thought it was worth it to make sure that we can still get all of our Medicaid and, keep our middle school principal up and upright to take care of the middle school needs, because there are always a lot of needs at every middle school ever. So we thought that seemed like a pretty fair way to kind of take care of that.
Rhonda, did they find us
Yeah, they're,
It's been like 2 or 3 years since we
well,
got you.
they actually last year gave us the service for the last, what was it, 2 or 3 months, Lisa?
Yeah.
That they came in and showed us what they could do for that 2% without charging us 2%. They met with our nurses, they went through and audited our files and really cleaned up the files of what we do and don't need to keep in there, so that's been really good. Yes.
They were here today,
Yeah.
showing things that we didn't need, I mean, just doing
Yeah,
that stuff.
he came and trained our aides, one day after school, so he'll be able to do that on those PD days. He will be here, I've already got him coming every Monday that we have PD, and he'll go through the files, and then he'll go to each building and collect the logins and get them billed. So hopefully we'll be on a monthly bill, instead of like it used to take me 2 or 3 months sometimes to catch up on the paperwork. So I think it'll be well worth the cheaper. He's already started on some transportation that I never had time to implement, so.
This might be something that would even be worth it, even if you did have somebody full-time in that role.
And him and I will still be in contact, so like if he needs me to say to the special ed teacher or aides, this is what we need to do. He has an administrator that can deal with that with the special ed, so.
I guess for Tim and Derek, I don't think you were on board when we initially approved this whole deal. I think it basically found us a lot more money coming back in by using this service.
And he works, our 3 nurses have always overseen our health plans. It's for those students that have health or behavior plans that we can recover. It's not, we don't make money. We recover some of the expenses that it costs to provide services to those kids in the form of a para with them, or like I said, transportation. If they have an escort on the bus or their route to and from school, we can recover some costs on that. So that's what it's for.
Approved Timberline Billing Services.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, item F, approve increase in adult meal price.
When we originally had the fee schedule, we were taking the price from a recommendation given to us, and since that time, we've had to do an application for the food service program, and found out along the way that we are required to charge the $4.15, so we have to do that.
So we have to do.
Yes.
I'm just amazed when the state tells us, more and more, we don't, it doesn't matter what we want at all. They told us what we had to pay for.
We can make it $7, but it has to be at least $4.
At
It has to be at least
All right.
And this kind of came up in the transition between food service directors. I mean, the next form was filled out by the next food service person, and our internal person filling out forms now is Lynette in our office. And as we work on those forms, we discovered that the milk price had to be at this level instead of what it had been set at prior to this.
Okay, well, we approve that. That's enough discussion over it down.
A motion,
Second.
motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Item G, approved bowling agreement. Rich, you wanna talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so we got a little bit bigger charge this year we didn't see coming. And I went to talk to Dawn Schwerin. She did itemize everything, and justified every bit of what she was charging. She had been undercharging us for, I don't know how long we've had bowling, probably 7 years, and been undercharging us quite a bit. And was trying to recover some costs, just like everybody else. She's gotta make money at some point. She did go up to give us an agreement of $4,100 per year, not to exceed 45. Now, before we were paying about $1,600. So after calling around to some other schools that have bowling, the average cost is about $2,000. Now, I will say that those bowling alleys are probably a lot more successful businesses. I think they probably have more patronage. than what we have, so you can take that in consideration. So what I was proposing was the school, my budget would take care of 2,000 of it. We're gonna ask the Bowling A Club, which is a subsidiary of the Booster Club, to pick up some of that cost, the other cost, and then the Booster Club, we would be asking them for someone to help us out too. So basically, the Bowling A Club would have to fundraise every year to try to raise $1,500 or so, somewhere in there. And so then we would ask the Booster Club for 1,000. It seems like a lot, but you know, when we have 40 kids out about every year, roughly 400 kids in high school, that's 10% of our kids that are bowling. And to be honest, I would say 95% of them don't do anything else, they don't have another extracurricular. So my goal as an activities director is to keep kids connected to the school somehow other than just the desk and a teacher. And if that's gonna do it, then we're succeeding. So, you know, I would hope that we would at least consider letting us try this with some fundraising, with some outside help for a year. And then, like I said, my budget can handle 2,000 of it to keep it. I don't want to see it go away.
Do all the schools in our conference have bowling? That's what I thought you were talking about, the bigger schools?
Well, no, I mean, we have Clark, Davis County, both have bowling. We bowl against Knoxville, is also in our conference. But then I call Oskaloosa, that's our one. Sigourney, yeah, Sigourney bowls with us. Fairfield, Pella. So there's several schools that we just don't have a conference bowling. Fairly popular sport.
And we really subsidize all the other sports. We pay the electric bill, the water bill, and those types of things.
Yeah. In the long run, you don't have to pay for officials. So there's every now and then there's an entry fee, but not very often. So in the long run, it's a fairly cheap sport to have. So the 4,500 could be justified for the league because I've got several other sports that cost a lot more than 4,500.
What do we do with the fee to get in, the tour fee?
It just goes into the game. Yeah. And sometimes we take, sometimes we don't. And unfortunately, it's because we have to start some of these meets at 2 p.m. So it's hard to get somebody there to take tickets. And the ones that do come from the other schools, there might be maybe not even 10 people. So the people that are coming for us already have activity tickets anyway. So you just have to figure out if it's a Saturday, you have to take some heat. If not, probably don't.
I've talked to Alex too. I'm willing to help with some fundraising.
Yeah, and they'll do a good job. I don't know if you know how a Booster Club works, but a Booster Club is athletics, and then they have subsidiaries of those that are basically what they used to call parent clubs, remember those parent groups? Well, now they're all under the Booster Club. So they get the benefits of the 501c3. They're accountable. There's somebody there to run their checkbook, so nobody can ever say, hey, where are you spending your money on? It's right there. So all of our A clubs are that way. It's a very, very good deal. We did that about 6 years ago.
Further discussion, questions?
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the bowling agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
All right. Item H, consideration of pre-authorized transportation purchase. Yes, whoever wants to, Mike?
Yeah, I'll talk to you guys about this, get around here so you can see me. It's been about 5.5 years since we've purchased any vehicle other than a bus. You guys approved for us to buy 5 buses, and like everything else in the world, those are not available. So after some discussion with Lisa and Mark, there's so much money set aside every year to purchase vehicles for the district. And it looks like we could purchase about 3 vehicles from the research I've done. We used to generally buy Suburbans, but the prices have just almost doubled on what we paid in the past. The last ones we bought were in like July of 17, they were like $36,000, and the last price I got for one was $59,000. So I mean, GM's not gonna sell us one for $30,000, and they can sell somebody for $80,000. So I'd like to get some Traverses, one less passenger, but about half the price of what a Suburban is. And, they're also all-wheel drive. The ones we have now are two-wheel drive, and I hate sending, we send somebody out to an in-service in Cedar Rapids and it snows, they're gone for 3 days, then you gotta worry about them getting home, so I think that'd be a good deal as well. I haven't done a lot of shopping, so obviously it gets approved, but, about 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks out to get anything is what we're looking at, so. I just think it'd be a good time to, while we're waiting on buses, to get some cars bought.
And on my job, I know the problems you're having with this. Basically, when one comes up, you either gotta take it immediately or it's gone.
So when we got that truck for Aaron, that was the problem. We need to be able to jump on something. If not, if I can't order anything, they tell me, hey, it's gonna be this long. If I find something, I need to be able to buy it, because like you say, when something's available, it's gonna get bought. There's a lot of dealerships that don't even have any new vehicles on the lot, so. I talked to my bus salesman this morning, and he said it'd be at least 13 months now before, if we bought something, ordered something today, it'd be next October before we get anything, so. Just the world we live in.
We word this motion in certain ways to make this make sense too, don't we?
Yeah.
So, like an up to $1 amount for up to 3 vehicles.
What is our yearly amount that we budget for?
150,000, but, I'm comfortable with 100,000 to authorize the purchase of 3.
Because we already have we did buy 2 buses out of the 5 we approved last year. We just got lucky and they were available, so we have to make those payments, right, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I want your motion to say that.
There it is.
Pre-authorized up to $100,000.
3 vehicles.
Does it have to be 3 or?
The total cost.
3 or a total cost?
Yes,
So total cost of up to $100,000.
yeah.
My goal is 3, like I provided you guys with a quote of 33. I'm gonna shop around. At one point, I got a quote for 28,000. I'll, buy the cheapest that's available, but that's just an idea.
I don't know if you have to fit this into the motion, but we want to make it clear, like, we are not asking for the ability to say $100,000. Now we can't find anything, we'll buy the $59,000.
No, I don't want to do
You want to
that.
get this price, like
I said, my goal is to buy 3 cars. That's what I'm.
yeah. And I've learned how to word things, so, yeah.
Okay, so our motion would be something to the effect of, to approve up to $100,000 for transportation director to purchase necessary vehicles.
That would work.
I would move to do what Lisa wants in there.
Okay, so what kind of, what's our motion then?
That we would attempt to buy 3 vehicles, spending less than $100,000.
What if you move to authorize the purchase of up to 3 passenger vehicles with a cost not to exceed $100,000?
Is that your motion, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Those opposed? All right. Okay.
And that, by the way, is the annual budgeted amount for transportation. That's why where that number, where we're comfortable with that.
Well, the annual mat's 150, but.
Right, but some of that's already spent.
Yep.
Item I, board approval of exceeding limit purchases. Aaron? Talk about this a little?
Yeah, I'm asking to have our Bobcat, it's currently in the, have it basically repaired. It has, in the engine, it has 1 cylinder that lost compression. And with that skid loader, we use that for snow removal. It's a very important piece in the winter. to make sure we can have school and everything like that. This quote I have here, it's a very soft quote. You'll see right there in the blue, it says if needed. It's, those are the fuel injector pumps that they put on there. Those are basically standard when you're rebuilding an engine like that. They would put it in there just that way you would know what it would cost for that. Now, I've talked with Mike and he said he's almost certain we won't need that $4,000 charge. But the fuel injection pumps are perfectly fine in it. But, so it's gonna be anywhere from about 14 PT.
And what would be the price of a new one?
You're looking 60 to 65,000 with about 6 months to a year wait time.
Motion to approve the,
I think we have some other things in here.
Well, do you wanna do them separate or together, or you can do either way?
what else you got?
So the other one is, I think Mecca has some things here, the Go Guardian, which is basically our safety net for online.
Yep. This allows us to make sure that our internet is being used for proper purposes and learning purposes, nothing nefarious and nothing inappropriate on our devices that way.
You're also saving a little bit because Pear Deck subscription is thrown in with this. Go Guardian purchased that and it'll replace our cost for Zoom that we were spending for Zoom meetings.
We're still gonna keep Zoom in this room because this is all set up for Zoom, but this will replace Zoom for the rest of the district.
What's the difference between the two?
It's still a messaging service, it's just, this one actually is connected to some other educational tools that you can use. So I've used Pear Deck as an educator before, just for presentations and things of that nature, but now it has a built-in video calling system too.
So the standard question, we're good on price?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion? Second? Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, item J, approval of Concert Association donation. We did have some information on email, I think. Mark?
Yeah, this one's kind of a bummer for me as a former music teacher. As we were researching, because there were kind of two items that threw Lisa and I for a little bit of a loop, and we needed to talk to Danielle on this, and then the donation of the bus for the fire department, which is later, actually the next item on here. So we reached out to Danielle to find out what we could do. School districts are not allowed to make a cash donation to an organization. They're allowed to do in-kind, so like our use of the auditorium that we donate to the Concert Association, we are still allowed to do, and that's in our board policy, so that's something that we get to keep doing. Our donation of a disposed asset, like the 2 school buses of the fire department, are allowed legally, but actually giving cash as a donation isn't. So that kind of threw us for a loop, but we left it on because we wanted to make sure that, I think it's important that we as a group, acknowledge that we support the Concert Association, and the in-kind use of our auditorium is about a $600, I think, I would say, kind of looking at the number of concerts, about a $600 value there. I did make a $100 donation after finding that out. I talked with Chris Kestner, and I would encourage anybody who's a supporter of the arts to consider the same. Just unfortunately, it would be illegal for us to do a cash donation, which I know has been done in the past, but
48 years?
yeah, just must not have been known that wasn't a legal thing at that point. So again, kind of a bummer as a former music teacher.
So Mark, just that in-kind thing, so we scheduled the auditorium, and we scheduled that, we're still okay with zero charge? That's
For
what
the-
in-kind, okay,
Yeah, that's, yep.
okay.
There's a provision in our board policy, so
We got some specific groups.
Yeah, the concerts, political parties,
Scouts.
all those
Uh-huh.
nonprofit kind of groups, they're kind of all listed in there.
So I think the best, I mean, to me would be to not take any action on this
Right.
item.
Sorry for the bad news. I hate to be that guy.
But Lisa told me, Dave, as soon as she arrived, she thought that was illegal.
I've learned very quick in this job, if she thinks something's probably not right, she's probably right.
Doesn't want to go to jail, does she?
No, she doesn't like that idea.
But I wanna say that I didn't know that for sure, and so once we know that now, we have to,
And you're
once
feeling
you know
good,
that, then you
you're
can't
feeling
do
good
that.
that you knew that all the time.
I'm saying I didn't have.
She has
legal
not quoted
advice
to me
about that.
once when I was
Don't
wrong.
ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Do I need to call for a motion and then Mike's advice,
I don't
lack of
think we need
motion,
to.
or?
No, I don't think I deal with it at all.
Okay. All right.
But the program does look pretty awesome, and if anybody is watching, is a supporter of the arts, I would highly encourage you to reach out to a member of the Concert Association. If you don't know any, Chris Kestner is a big member of that group and could certainly help you out. They have a really cool Chicago, the band tribute concert on September 25th that looks pretty good, so I highly encourage people to go to those concerts.
Item K, consideration of bus donation. Speak to the Centerville Fire Department for training.
So, and Derek and I had talked about this some, so Derek, if you want to add anything to this, feel free. The fire department would like to get a couple buses to essentially practice for bus evacuation or bus rescue if there would ever be a catastrophe that would happen with a bus. Obviously, that serves to benefit our students and our community in a big way. I know there was a tragic grain bin thing that had happened in the area recently, and because the departments involved had training with grain bin rescue, they were able to be successful in rescuing that gentleman. So this would be along those same lines, giving training to those first responders so that they know how best to operate around that equipment and what things they might need to know to do a successful rescue.
And the district.
Yeah, so when it comes to these, I'll be real quick on this. When it comes to these bus rescues, bus trainings, so many times they are relegated to regional fire schools, rescue schools. So it is nice to have an opportunity to get, I'm speaking out of turn. Captain Ryan Moore is going to kind of head this up, but this will be open to, all departments, within the county. I've taken part of a handful of them, back in my younger days on the department. But it is truly something that, kind of like the grain bin. Once the guys got there, it was riding a bike. It's something you never really think you're going to use, but to have, access to two of them will benefit a lot of the responders in the community.
And so because this is a disposed asset, it would be an in-kind donation at that point, so we are legally allowed to do that. The advice from Allers and Cooney is that we get with our local paper and just share out that disposed asset was donated. And that makes us real buttoned up to make sure this donation is okay.
I was just gonna say what Mark said. So.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad.
Further discussion or questions?
Motion to approve the bus donation.
Second.
Motion and a second. Need we don't need a roll call on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Item L, approval of board meeting times and dates. This is something that we've kind of talked about in the last couple meetings. I don't know, Mark and I talked, I don't know, we're not really looking for how to make those meetings run, just approving what is already there, is that correct?
Yeah, essentially, and because of the elimination of the committee meetings, I know there was some discussion around whether board members wanted to keep the 6:30 time, or whether you want a different 5:30 or a 6 o'clock or something on that effect to be able to make your night a little bit earlier.
Seemed like the consensus the last couple times was 5:30. I think 5:30 may have been,
That works.
does that sound reasonable to
Or
everybody?
5:30, sounds good to me.
Yeah, 5:30 is fine.
So we're looking at moving the meeting times to 5:30 unless a special meeting would be called or something to that effect. Still working out how to structure the work sessions, I think. So I think that's something we can kind of go by and plan out later on. Is that right, Mark?
Yep, and so we do have lined up, we'll have a student rep at our work sessions, so the second meeting of each month. I've worked with Mr. Warren and with Mrs. Lechtenberg at the high school, and they have they've gotten a few seniors together to come to our second meeting each month and kind of update the board on the goings-on of the school from students' perspectives. And I'm kind of excited about the next one because they will have just gotten out of Pancake Day and they'll be getting ready to go into homecoming season. So you will undoubtedly hear some very excited high school students share awesome things.
So on this, would we need to make a motion to approve the dates and moving the time to 5:30?
So moved.
Second.
You think
This main chair is pretty easy here, Bob. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. All right. Item M, planning for high school addition groundbreaking.
Okay, so obviously we're going to be breaking ground on the high school building soon, which is super exciting. And we thought the board might enjoy an opportunity to go and have a little bit of a ceremony with that. Was kind of looking at, and we totally could be flexible, but I worked a little bit with AJ at the pitch to try to find a day and time that we could maybe hit a good news cycle to be in the paper at a good time with that. And we were thinking maybe Monday the 26th at 5, which then will make it kind of a tight turnaround to get back in time for our board meeting, but something that we certainly could make happen. We followed up to make sure, because it is strictly a ministerial duty of the board to do a groundbreaking. We can have a quorum there, we just can't talk business. So as long as we refrain from talking business, we could have everybody there, get some pictures, maybe in a hard hat with a shovel or something, and
we did that for the football field.
perfect. So,
Walked out there in the mud.
which is fun. That's a good time.
No.
I would like to propose a break from tradition.
Okay.
This is a school for the future. And instead of me standing there, a guy from the past, I would much rather have kindergarten, first grade students, pre-K. I would like to see them wearing the hard hat and doing groundbreaking instead of us.
Good move. Yeah.
That's a cool idea.
How about representation from the middle school too, kind of make it.
Whatever, you know?
Think?
I'd like to see this.
Maybe not, maybe not.
Yeah, whatever, I'd like to see,
I like that idea.
toss the idea around, it's not us. It's for them, and they should be, and they will be the ones that will run this thing.
I love it.
So, I don't know how you figure that out. But
That's a cool idea.
I think we leave that up to our administrators, figure out.
figure out what you want to do.
So here's a thought. I mean, I love it. You know, one and the same. Could we pick pick that evening? You know, I still think the board and admin needs to be there. But just say, hey, if your kids want to come, you know, let them all put the hats on. Let them put the shovels in the dirt.
So I think I see what you're saying, Derek. Let me see what if we work as a team administratively to find an afternoon that we could do that with some students and invite the board, whoever would like to come and be a part of that, just clapping, cheering on the kids, and we'll get a picture with the kids with some shovels in the dirt in the paper, which I think is a cool idea.
Absolutely.
Really good.
And Rochelle came last time when we did that too.
Right, yep. Awesome, so we'll get to work on that. Again, I still would like to hit kind of that time period, when AJ and I talked, that kind of puts us in kind of the homecoming, edition of the paper with that, which I think is a great time for our alums coming back to get to see the things that we're doing. So, we'll shoot for something that'll get us in to that news cycle. Not that it's about the news cycle, but it is nice to take advantage of good things for the news cycle.
Do we need a motion on anything on that? Okay, item N, approve personnel business procedures.
I am concerned about the 3 resignations from the food department, food service program.
Me too.
I don't know.
Me 3.
Why do we have 3 people resign right off the bat?
Because the job changed.
And it's a big change in some cases. It is. I talked to a couple area superintendents who have done this change, and they actually had some significant amount of turnover within the first month, their first year as well. And then things settled in. I know, I want to give major props very publicly to Terry Schofield, who's put a lot of time in and really helped recruit some new workers for that group. Obviously, they do the hiring to replace, so OPA will be doing hiring for these replacement spots, but Terry really drummed up the interest for them, so I want to give her some kudos. And she spent a lot of time in there learning the job with those guys and gals to help them see some good leadership, so I appreciate that.
We were just about 30 days behind getting started. And so it was like OPA on steroids. And they gave that example. They're like, Terry, our measuring cups were taken out. The way we prepared food is all OPA. These are people who are now, they're cooking with flour and sugar and the recipes are this way, and you do it in this line at this time, and you do the salad this way. And it was, I did say to Mark a couple times, it is really intense, but if we could have gotten to start when we planned to, for the board's direction, it wouldn't have been quite as intense as it was. But you know what, they're getting there, and it's been a good team effort, and numerous board members have stopped in and checked in. Mark's been in numerous times, and our kids are liking the food, and we're getting food served a lot quicker and a lot more quality to our kids. They're getting a lot more fuller plates than they've had before.
But the staff are on their feet a little bit more, aren't they?
Quite a bit, yeah.
Very much so.
Quite a bit. And they're doing awesome with it, and I really want to celebrate them and what they're doing too, because I think it was a tough adjustment at first for some, because it's a totally different job, like you said, and they've done a really good job. They made sure that kids didn't see that transition was hard, and I think that means, for that, our kitchen staff needs to be saluted, given a pat on the back, and congratulated anytime you see them. And to talk a little bit, I talk a little bit out of turn when I say that, because one of the resignations was before we had really done anything with the new food service program, and another one of them is because she had gotten a different job opportunity somewhere else, as I understand it. And I think we kind of anticipated maybe through the summer, but just hadn't heard. Yeah, it was a tricky transition coming in, and I think part of that with having one superintendent started, another superintendent ended, one food service director started, another group of people are kind of overseeing that come in to finish it. That's not really how I would like to roll something like that out. I'd really like to have been from beginning to end, because I think there's some you know, chumming of the waters when you make a change like that, where you help people see, the need for change, and you help them through it, so it's not such a jarring shock to the system right away.
I think you should talk to that company about when they make their presentation, they should have warned us that this is a change and so forth.
Well, I've been to high school, junior high in Lakeview, went in and spoke with all the food service workers at each location. First off, I wanted them to explain the process to me because I've never been there, never seen that. The process is amazing, what they do every single day. They did show, tell me some frustrations that they've had and things like that. I think nailed it on the head. I mean, it was changed and it was changed last minute. I think if we had moved forward 3 months prior with this, the transition wouldn't have been as bad or as rough. But they're working their tails off, and there's still hiccups, I think, but they're definitely, I think they like it for the most part, just trying to figure out all the change involved, from what I've gathered.
I probably got more feedback from more people than on any other things since I've been on the board, I think, to just unsolicited, not me prompting them at all.
Well, I gave this example to Mark. I think it was maybe day 3. I called Mark and I said, I'm just gonna tell you that phrase, too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm like, honest to God, Mark, there are 9 OPA people here.
That was hard.
9 OPA people and our staff. And it's a small area, you've all seen that. So, like for example, those people come in and they all run their own kitchen. So here the 9 leaders running their own ship are trying to tell our people how to run their ship. And they gave examples of someone told me to brown 3 pounds of hamburger, somebody else told me to brown 13 pounds, somebody else told me just to brown all 30. So it really is a two-way street. And the truth is, just like what Mark said, man, we're telling them we got 1,300 kids to feed and we want this to go well, so put your best performance out there in front of us.
We have some feedback on some of the training procedures, I think, that we're planning to give to OPA, following our time with them. Now, in fairness to them, they wanted to start training about 3 weeks earlier. We were waiting on an individual to decide whether they were going to return to a position, and that kind of drug us out some. But the way they accelerated it, I think, putting so many people in there didn't help, because as you're running into people, it makes it a lot harder to have positive feelings if you don't have room to breathe. So, but our kids are eating more, they're getting great meals. I still do highly encourage anybody who would like to go sometime. I mean, you don't have to go when I go, but if you feel like you need some moral support, just line up with me and I'd be happy to go to one of the buildings with you. And we can sit at separate tables so that you can talk to kids, and because that's a really important thing, and try out one of the meals. And please, 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 if you go through a building, give a handshake, pat on the back, whatever you can do to the kitchen staff, because they have worked their tails off to make this awesome, and they are doing a great job with it.
On a side note, the mini corn dogs and the blueberry crumb cake are really, really good.
The watermelon salad was.
I've heard about that, yeah.
I did not expect that.
I missed meatloaf Wednesday.
Who is our, I think they call it the program director?
Lynette. Lynette is you mean the one that we have to watch over for the state? Yeah. So we've got Lynette filling out our food service. And that's good because, she's being in this office, she's got a little bit more, she's tied in on some of that state reporting. We had a little snafu with some of our claims for the end of last school year. And luckily Lisa's kind of saved us on that one. So we'll be able to make those claims. But I think having that entity in this roof where we can kind of oversee that is really helpful.
As I read through their contract again this weekend, and really all the responsibility still lies with the school district. The reporting and almost every little detail still rests with us. And so I'm glad to hear that we've got.
They give us some information that can help us fill some of that out, but, we have a really competent person for that. I mean, Lynette she's very smart, so.
Good, I'm glad that's covered.
And technically, OPA, Food Service Management Company cannot do claims or
Right.
the state reporting.
Right, they really can't do any of that.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to be sure everybody understood that basically the responsibility for this program still rests with us. And we really didn't hand much, we didn't hand much off.
Basically, the ordering of stuff and the actual preparation, and overseeing the preparation. So like, we're still responsible for having our equipment that's good and all that, so. Now, they have been a good partner, in kind of that planning process as we went through the kitchen stuff for the value engineering. Morgan, and I don't remember Morgan's actual title with OPA, but she's kind of a regional person. Did come and sit in with us on that and help us make sure that we were planning in an intelligent way.
And you talk about their buy-in, I know this is a small detail, but last Friday, our first home football game, do you know what she did? She bought t-shirts for all the OPA people that in town that said Centerville Big Reds. And when the kids came through for lunch, which is 600 kids, 5 different lunch shifts, she's like, we're so glad to be part of your team. I mean, you talk about the atmosphere in there. She didn't have to do any of that, but her message was, we're all Big Reds here. So, I mean, they really worked hard, I think, to help our people transition as they realized how tough it was.
So you think we're stable now?
I think we're probably more or less stable, I think, just as we would be in any other year. The problem with non-certified positions is you get a lot of turnover. I would like to not see the level of turnover that we had at the beginning, be the case, long term. But I think we're pretty stable like a normal year that way.
So the procedure is that they will now do the hiring.
They now hire the position, and Terry had just kind of drummed up some interest for
We
them.
just threw it out on Facebook is what we did. We just said, moms and dads, we need you, we got hours that'll match your kids being at school, and we had eight applicants by the next day, by noon. So they came in and then we ran the background checks in our building to make it go quicker.
And that's an important note, so we will still background check all the people who are gonna be working in the kitchen, even though OPA's hiring them. State law requires that if someone is in our building, and interacting with students in that way, that we're background checking them, so, for anybody playing along at home, we're still making sure that the people that we're putting in there are safe, even though an outside organization is doing the hiring.
I would move that we accept all of these, whatever these things are. These,
All of them,
what's the word?
all of personnel business
Yes,
procedures.
right, yeah.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Financial reports.
Those were boring.
You couldn't find anything?
Whoa, Lisa, stay still. You even got moved closer to her tonight, Bob, and then wow.
That was a brave.
Well, it's just the beginning of year, all that color pencils.
Lisa or Mark, do you guys have anything on the financial
I
report?
think boring is probably a positive with
That's
all
right
that,
there,
so
that's
she's working on
boring
a
is
certified
good.
annual report right now, and that is anything but boring, so.
Questions or discussion?
It did kind of look like there was a lot to get it off the ground, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But,
It's nothing controversial there at all.
no, that's right, nothing.
You could sneak anything in there, we wouldn't catch it.
Please don't say that.
Okay, with that being said, I'd entertain a motion.
Nobody get any ideas out there. Internet.
Motion to approve financial reports.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Principal reports.
What do you say? start at the very beginning. Very good place to start.
Preschool's been off to a great start. It's always a good day when we don't have very many tears the first day of school, and we didn't. So, and that's continued, so that's really great. As you can see, I have 54-year-olds. That's a little bit less than what I want. We have room for 60. We have a couple more that have come in the last week or so that's exciting. Have a couple more 3-year-olds coming as well. So we always like when our numbers are growing. It's really all just about learning how to be in school. It's a lot of routine, a lot of waiting and being patient, and figuring out those rules and procedures of how school looks and works. And for some of our friends, that is a very new concept. So it's always a lot of work, and those preschool teachers are pretty tired at the end of the day. But it's a great thing, and those kids have really enjoyed being at school, and it's just so fun to see the excitement from those kiddos. The new Promethean boards that were purchased last year for preschool are a very new and awesome thing, and they spent some time this summer kind of learning how to utilize those in more ways than they had. So they don't connect to a computer now. They are all in the board, and so it's all right there, which is wonderful because teachers don't have to worry about hooking anything up. It's all right there, and there's so many more interactive things to do with them. So this summer they took some time and created new lessons and shared with each other, and just kind of really got some time to figure out. We didn't get those until February or March last year, so they didn't have as much time with them. So they're really utilizing those. And the kids love it because they think it's so cool. They can take their finger and mark on it they use tally marks and moving objects and things. So it's been a lot of fun to see that develop and utilizing those that we've had. So we had a great turnout for our Meet Your Teacher night. The one thing that makes preschool, there's many things that makes preschool unique, but every teacher is mandated by the state to reach out to every family and make a home visit. It gives our teachers a lot of clues into how kids, the values of families, and just information that is good to start with. Also starts that relationship so kids aren't scared at first when they come, because it is a totally new experience for most of our kiddos. So that's always a fun thing, an interesting thing, because you learn a lot, or have little siblings that tell you things, you're like, okay, thanks. But it's a great way for our families to meet our teachers, and our teachers to see where our kids are coming from. So that is the highlights of my report. If you have any questions, I would take them. It's been a good year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would probably say that this has probably been the best start to a school year I've had the opportunity to experience too. In that, I think, like we're up to day 12, 13. Sometimes we have friends who have a tough time regulating their own behaviors, and just oftentimes out of things that are difficult for young people. And we have not had hardly any of that this year. And I really credit a lot of that to the fact of what our teachers have done. One of the teachers said, the first week of school, I am so tired because I feel like I've been here for 3 weeks. And when you go in the rooms, it's amazing what a teacher does. I know you guys probably all know that I'm singing in the choir, but what a teacher does to take a room that's clean and it's got a shiny floor, and they just make it a home in a matter of 3 weeks before their kids get there. And our teachers have done a great job of that. I say that all the time, that we just have an amazing staff in our district. But really, it's been great. But in a lot of rooms, our teachers are doing great work. Mark and Julie presented on our PLC processes, kind of rejuvenating those after COVID, and we're really doing that work. Today was a great day of PD. Our teachers were really engaged in that and working collaboratively. We're looking at a lot of our students at those 4 questions, what about the kids who already know it? What are we doing for them? What about the kids who don't know it yet? What can we do for support? And Julie and I worked this summer and created a schedule that was totally built around the idea that all kids, all classrooms needed 20, 25, 30 minutes at a time, what we called win time, which is what everyone needs now. And it's just built from the idea that kids have that extra time for intervention, for support. So if you're struggling with math, you have extra time for that. If you're struggling with reading, there's extra time for that. And so we built the schedule totally around that, focused on that, and staffed it with additional staff. You know, our kindergarten and first grade friends, when they start going in different places, they need a few more than, 10 or 12 people in a group. So we really designed that so that we had additional, maybe up to 10 staff, so that those kids could be broken down into smaller groups. And our bigger kids have less adults because we know they can handle going in those groups a little bit bigger. So it's our SAMI plan. We really focused on that in June with our staff and built that around how are we going to respond to the multiple tiers that our kids need in the areas of reading, math, and behavior. So we had great turnout for back to school night. We kind of built that schedule to allow for not too much overage in one hall versus the other. We wanted our kindergarten families to come in and be there by themselves, kind of get their feet wet for the first time and the kids comfortable. And then we hodgepodge the grades so that this whole hallway wasn't swamped and that whole hallway wasn't swamped. And we had great turnout, high numbers, positive support, good start.
Okay, so, I'm learning. No, it's been a great start, and I have to credit a lot of it to the staff and the support I've gotten from the people in this room too, because it's a great team atmosphere, and I really appreciate getting off to a good start. I feel like I ask more questions and I'm giving answers right now because I feel like I have to figure out why we do some of the things we do before we change things. One of the things that happens a lot of times with changing in administration is new people don't always know why we did what we did before, and then things get changed that might not need to be changed. So like I said, I'm asking probably more questions and I'm giving directives at this point. But as far as student achievement, we're going to look at setting our goals based on the work that Mark started with the SIAC committee and building our secondary goals from the elementary goals and working towards improving our literacy and math scores. We're targeted for special ed in our building, so we need to look at what's happening there. And I've been doing some work with the special ed teachers in the building and how we provide services to those kids. It's a work in progress. As far as the programs and cultures we're doing, we're using Swiss, similar to it's the program the elementary does, and I've watched what Terry does with that data in her building as far as keeping track of discipline issues and attendance and things like that, and trying to target areas that could be putting supports in. With PBIS, it's positive behavior support, so we have to teach the kids our expectations. And one of the major things we're working on now is tardies. We've went back to using bells to change from class to class instead of music. And because talking with the staff, we felt like it gives them more of a cut and dry time to be in the class and getting from class to class. And so we're working with those kids to make sure they understand what tardy means, and we've given them grace the first 2 weeks, so we're going to start counting it now, and with lunch detentions, and we'll see how that works.
I heard all about that.
We're going back old school a little bit. And the kids are great. I love the kids, and they're responding pretty good. You have those that like to push the rules as always, but what I've been saying is we get them from elementary as elementary kids, and our 6th grade team kind of really supports them strongly. At first they walked them to the bathrooms the first few weeks of school, and now they're kind of starting to let them go more independently and stuff, and then we move them into 7th grade. By the time we get to 8th grade, we want them to be more independent because we have to get them ready for Brad's building. And so that's kind of the philosophy I'm taking us through as far as that middle level is a transition period. And with it comes a lot of the social emotional stuff. So we started looking at our majors and minors within a PBIS system, like what are the major things in discipline? I would say like fights and things like that. And then the minors are things like talking back, things like that. So you identify what's your major things and what's your minor things and who deals with those. Andy, my dean of students, and Marcia and Jason are a great team. They handle a lot of the minor stuff, and I do the major, and I have to say that I haven't had hardly any majors, maybe 1 or 2 this year so far. So it's been great so far. Not but the kids are actually being really respectful. And what I'm really excited about is the few phone calls I've had to make to parents about any major things. The parents have been very supportive in talking with their children and the fact that we need to grow respectful and responsible young adults in our community. And that's how I talk to the parents, because, and I remind them what it was like when they were in middle school. And so they've been really very, very supportive of when I've had to call them about whatever it is. So I'm enjoying it so far, and I feel it's a great start. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sure you don't have any questions? One thing I noticed, my report's not near as pretty as everybody else's. So I didn't have any pictures or things.
You can't keep up with Karate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's no, I think everything in the board report, we've been doing our exact past diagnostics. That goes in with our advisory time. That's our win time. Gives the kids a chance to get extra help in certain areas, or it gives them a chance to practice, we call it, do homework, missing assignments, things like that. And the exact path is the other part. The computer program that our kids can use, to build their skills. One of the things we talked about in PD today, the other wheel of that, when we looked at developing this, is there is an enrichment piece that goes with that. Last year, we didn't think we were ready for the enrichment, because it's a lot of extra on the teachers. In the future, we would like to look at getting that enrichment, and that would speak to those high-level learners that we've talked about, and, giving kids a chance to maybe go to chemistry and doing some beyond the core work. So that's something we talked about today, we would like to get to. Our enrollment seems to be good. We've got some pretty full classrooms. I would have to commend Mr. Hodges, our counselor, did an excellent job getting kids scheduled. It was tough. We got everybody in time. In the past, we've been a day or two before we got a schedule. So we had that all good. Programs and culture, I was happy we have 316 kids in CTE classes. I thought that's a good number. Those are kind of, not saying they go right to the workforce, but I think that exposes them to that type of things. Our new food classes, 74 kids in 4 classes. That's pretty good numbers. Seem to be very popular with the kids. Got 54 kids going to Indian Hills Academies, whether it's construction, auto tech, welding, health services. And then we have a total of 134 kids taking college classes, either at Indian Hills or DMAC.
What's that number again?
134. And my report said we have 4 foreign exchange kids. I talked to Mr. Taylor. We hadn't had any for a while. I think it's a good opportunity to bring kids in and expose our kids to some different stuff. We had one cancel this week, so we're only gonna have 3. I did the 3 that we have. I brought them in the other day, talked to them. They're delightful young ladies. And I, told them, I said, I think we will learn more from you than you learn from us here. And they're very happy about being here, so I think they're gonna be good kids.
Where are they from?
We have one from Italy, one from Spain, and one from Germany. Professional development, our special education teachers are learning a new IEP system that's not overly popular right now. It's tough. And we've had a little transition in our special education in our building. We've got some kids with pretty high needs that we've moved to a little different setting, and really it's been tremendous how it's went so smoothly. We've got them out in the workplace, off campus for hours a day, doing some stuff with an associate. We've got maybe working in a different part of the building, but there's a lot of growth that's been I've seen from those kids. Today at professional development, we had a great discussion. We talked about grading. You know, what's our philosophy on grading? What are we grading? How many grades should we have? And we just had really good discussion. We also had a back to school open house night, which was, high school's not overly well attended. It's primarily freshmen, but we did have a nice crowd, people coming in, things like that. Our first day with freshmen, I think that's extremely helpful. I think that just eases kids, the freshmen. At our SIAC meeting the other night, one of the parents mentioned that her daughter just come home and says, we don't have to walk in lines to class. They just let us go, and they trust that we're going to get there. And so, you know, and you don't think about things like that when you're. So overall, I think it's been a very good start. I would, you know, Emily has really helped me get some data together that we needed. Being kind of new to this position, there was a lot of things that I thought just happened automatically that I found out that didn't, that I kind of had to do them. So Emily has really helped me get some of that at the last minute. So that's all I have. If you have any questions?
Can I bring up a topic? I've got to work it in here someplace. I've got these 3 nursing home friends that are asking me weird questions. We're gonna tear down a building, and we've not talked about how we're gonna tear that down. We're gonna save some stuff and put it in our new building. But these people wanna, okay, Rich, we put a new, in the gym, is there wood underneath that new flooring? Somebody wants a piece of that basketball floor that they played on.
That unfortunately is gone.
That's what I told them, okay.
Yeah, they took
But I
it all
didn't
out
lie.
of the bleachers. Yeah.
What?
They took it all out of the bleachers.
That's what I figured, okay. And then somebody wants their locker in the gym locker room.
That could be arranged.
Actually, I'm guessing the gym lockers they had have been gone, because that was renovated.
And then the person asked me where the films were, football films from '63. And I told them they probably went to the landfill in 1970. But anyway, there's people who want pieces of that building. Are we gonna let them do that? Or are we gonna just
Well, I think we've.
make them go to the dump?
Very preliminarily started to look at some of that. What we really would like to do is let the Historical Society kind of have first crack at some of that stuff
absolutely.
before we, at least maybe I shouldn't say that. I would like the board to allow us to let the Historical Society to have first crack at some of that stuff before we look at that, because that will preserve it for everyone to get the experience. But yeah, we've kind of started to look a little bit at what that process could look like and what might need to be saved and everything.
Yeah, like, are we gonna sell bricks?
I was hoping you were gonna ask the question I asked today, Bob, which was, how are we gonna demo it? Will there be dynamite? I wanna see that.
He wants to press the button.
I was hoping you were gonna ask that.
Like one of
Nothing like a good implosion.
Yeah.
I'll turn this over to watch some video.
That was in my mind.
I'm all for selling bricks, by the way. That's one of another school did that. selling
Yeah,
bricks.
and
It's tough to be the guy and be accountable for all that, but
Right,
it's a good thing. It's a little easy way to make a little fundraiser. People will pay for them. They just come and get them as they buy them.
There, in this whole process, we never talked about that because there was no need to talk about it, but now people are.
Well, and I think one of the things we gotta look at is, we had those kind of some legal issues we had to look at with Central when we were wanting to get rid of some stuff there.
Yeah.
So I think it may be one of those, it's a long discussion with legal.
One of the good news is we started that process a little bit, learning about what we can and can't donate and sell and get rid of and everything.
We got 2 years, so I'm not worried. Okay, I'm sorry.
Principals, thank you.
I guess I would like to thank all you folks for, taking the time to come in this evening. It seems like we haven't had this for a long time. And it's always encouraging to hear all the good news. But the good news is just kind of rolls off. I expected that. It's the problems and the frustrations that I need to hear that. Not that maybe I can help, maybe I can't. But it also gives me a better sense of the frustrations that you're having, and maybe we can propose a solution, whether it's a spending limit or controls or the bowling thing, whatever it is. we need to know the tough things too. And I think we shared that tonight, and I appreciate that. And hopefully we solved a few of those. That's, your job is to tell me what you need. And it's my job, our job, to get it for you. That's the way it's gonna work.
Could each of you talk a little bit about your assessment of the mental health of our students? Now, like this past week, there are these solidarity people who say our kids in the whole country are gonna be 2 generations behind in reading and math. But then 2 days later, Iowa reports that our kids are pretty much on track and not that very far behind. So what's your assessment, I guess both with the learning thing, but also the mental health I want you to talk about, if you can.
I think one of the most powerful things that I have seen in the elementary is something that we implemented during the time that we were home for COVID. And that was the implementation of morning meetings. And if there was something that Mark said, you know, bring a picture and show one of the powerful things that goes on in your building, I would love for the whole town, the community, to see what teachers do when kids walk in their room in the morning in a morning meeting. And I think that has been one of the most connected events that has pulled kids in and made them feel safe, feel cared about, where teachers can check the temperature and see how they are. I mean, we walk in rooms and kids have one shoe off. They're exchanging shoes, they're elbow bumping to share good news. It's just, it was just a practice that was implemented, PBIS, that was about developing the atmosphere, the family, the connectivity. And our highest learners, our lowest learners, our most outgoing, our quietest, are all, nobody would want to miss that in the morning. You know, it's the first thing we do in the day. So I think that's been one of the most powerful ways.
Bob, I'd say last year we saw a slight decline in participation in activities due to mental health. And I think it's some of it for kids just got used to not doing some things and didn't really want to get back into it. But I did notice this year our numbers have jumped back up. I think kids are starting to get a little bit more, motivated to go do some things and get connected with it. And I can see that being kind of the same issue in the classroom. I'd say it's going to be a slow climb, but I think everything will be right back to where it needs to be fairly soon.
One of the things that's helping in our building is Julie DeVries is coming in on Thursday mornings. So you guys approved for her to have a contract with us, and she's meeting with some of our kiddos in I've given her my office to work with them, so it's more of a confidential setting. That's one of the things, but I do think it's real. I mean, we've talked about it, the mental health stress our kids went through and are still to a certain extent living that now. But I think it's exacerbated by the technology they're dealing with and the social media stuff, especially when you get to the middle school on up. That plays a huge role in what they deal with. Middle school has always been a emotional roller coaster for kids, and I think COVID just made it even more intense. I don't know a better word. So that's why we want to focus this year on more of the social emotional stuff with PBIS and connecting with some of those kids, still using Beckman's stuff and his phrases, the human connection of just look up and it's okay to fail on, push through the hard stuff. So we're trying to give kids the vocabulary and the terms to use for those kind of social emotional issues that they come up against.
There's that mindset, by the way.
Yeah.
It's okay to fail.
It's okay to fail.
Grow from it.
Yeah.
For me, I would say looking at kids in unstructured settings, that would be us before school, that would be our lunch, after school, seeing at ball games, it looks like we're returning back to normal. Lunchroom is much more normal than it has been in the last couple of years. Before school, we'll have kids hanging out in groups talking and kind of like on the mental health thing. I think one of the things I think we're probably just better at recognizing it than we were. I think our staff is much more aware of it. and we bring it to people's attention. Like I said, Julie's a big resource. We have student advisors. I think we just notice it more, probably, some of it. But yeah, it's a concern.
I think a big aspect that as administrators, we all need to be aware of too though, is the mental health of our teachers. I mean, you talk about the pressure they are under, just like you said, gosh, you turn on the news and somebody's gonna tell you how bad the education world is, and you know, on and on and on, and you know, it is hard to see kids come in day to day, and it is hard to make calls for help, and those calls not be, you know, warranted, and not see the supports that you know families need, and so, I mean, it's a hard job, and many of those people do that all day long, and then go home and try to have something left for their own family, so I think it makes us all more mindful of trying to take care of our people too.
And I read something that it could be accurate. It sounded like, from what I've seen, it kind of looks like it might, that high school kids have been most affected by attendance. Their attendance is most affected. Below that is their behavior.
That's.
So high school attendance, I mean, we struggled last year. I hope right now it's not bad, but we're still pretty early in the ballgame. So
I attended a restorative practice, which is some type of strategies and ways to deal with behavior, and the speaker is from Texas, and it was in Des Moines, and it was a great conference, and the coaches and I went, and it really just made me think about how society has changed, and we even see that with our little people. If you talk to my preschool teachers, the way kids come into us and don't necessarily can't sit for more than a few minutes. I mean, they're little and we know that, but it's even more apparent than it used to be. The amount of books, I know that great push from Mr. Moore's wife in the Imagination Library. I'm so excited to see that impact our kids, because kids don't have the book concepts like they did at one time. And so I just think that we are recognizing that and trying to use that adversity that's facing us and rolling with it. I mean, we're changing our practices and continually do that to look at that. But I think the more we can get resources to our staff on trauma-informed practices and things which we're all looking at, we have to better prepare them, like Terry said, so that they know how to handle situations and the different aspects that we're seeing now, because kids are very different. I've not been in the teaching realm that long, but just in the time that I've started 15, 16 years ago to now, kids are very different in all levels. And so we just have to continue to look at that.
Mark, do you want to share about the student success team met here today?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, our counselors, social workers, and nurses, I think I might have put this in my weekly agenda, I can't remember. They met here today to kind of go over some resources in the area and just try to articulate that program. And one thing that came up is if we've got a kid who's receiving some assistance when they're at elementary, we want to make sure that there's a solid handoff for that kid when they go to middle school and then again when they go to high school. So real important work to be done there. And I think they'll meet again multiple times this year, because that's important work for them to get to engage in. A lot of times our curriculum stuff doesn't mean as much to them as being able to work on what they got into it for.
Today they created a list of resources to share with staff of what's available at these local places and how can we get those into the hands of families, because that's sometimes the barrier is we know that these resources are out there, but how do we actually get them hooked up with them? And so that team spent the day doing that, and it was very productive. The document that they have we'll share out with others as well.
So a perfect example, when you think like we're doing all these good things, and I just got the food bank going and all that, the example that Maggie Kirkland shared with us just back in the building, casual talk at the end of the day, was you can send a high school kid to go do that, but you know what? You can't get food at the food bank if you're not 18. So when we all think, oh yeah, we're meeting the needs of all of our kids, well then we need to rethink how can we really meet the needs of all those kids who might not have an adult who's got a car, or who might not be available during those open hours. And so just all that good, you know, more of us together are smarter than one of us, but that's the thing, again, about our entire staff, pre-K-12, any teacher in this district would go to great heights to support any kid.
I want to add to that, I think any staff, honestly, I was
Exactly.
in the Howard cafeteria talking to the gals in there, and they had some ideas of like, hey, Mr. Taylor, we need to do this and this and this, because it helps the kids out, it takes care of things, for them, because that's what they're there for, and I think like every member of this team, I've talked to our drivers, I was on the trip with that pet bus, I was talking to the driver there, and just the things that they wanna do for the sake of these kids really aligns with their social emotional needs, along with that mental health piece.
Just being good partners to our parents.
Yeah.
Everybody loves their kids and they wanna do the best they can.
Good team.
Okay, superintendent report.
I'm working to become more brief with these. I find that I'm kind of a talker, so I apologize. Great start to the school year. We've got a lot of compliments from parents and rave reviews from students and staff on the lunch program. And actually, I should say lunch and breakfast program, because I did get some compliments from people on the breakfasts, that their kids want to get to school earlier so that they could eat school breakfast and be on time for that. I am stoked by how many of our kids have been out to support our students in football and volleyball and all of our different sports. You know, I haven't yet been able to catch cross country. That's one of my big goals in the coming weeks. So
October 4th.
All right, there we go. I don't want to neglect them, because I hear we're having some good success in that area, and I just
Probably has a job for you too.
I'm sure. I wanted to be careful how I said that. But our student section is showing up loud and proud, and they're doing an awesome job. They monitor where they sit. Whenever they leave the space, it's clean. They're respectful. They had a I don't know, better term to call it, a cheering war against the Eddyville student section at the volleyball game, and it was all polite but kind of funny. Eventually they decided they needed to play Uno with them, I guess, so that was amusing. Starting tomorrow, we have our vulnerability assessments from the Iowa Department of Homeland Security vendor. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'll start tomorrow at Lakeview with Terry, and we'll see how the first one works out. We did apply.
What's that all about? I don't understand that.
Well, so the governor came out with that $50,000 per school, and so the first step is you have to do a vulnerability assessment. So they hired this company called Tetra Tech to be the vendor for the state, and the state's paying for it. They didn't give a lot of guidance on what it's gonna look like, so we're gonna see. One person said, oh, you won't even have to talk to them very much. The next person's like, well, you need to be able to tell them what guns and body armor the police have. And I'm like, okay. So we'll see tomorrow what how that actually goes. But it opens us up to be able to apply for the funding, which is a big deal. We did already apply for the free radios that connect up with the PD. Spoke with our police department to make sure that our radio that we're getting is the correct brand to communicate with their radio, because there's a couple different brands and some of them don't communicate with each other as well. So we got the same brand as the PD on that. Lisa and I have started some work to look at a program called Frontline. So our district is a little bit behind the times on some of our absence management, time clock, and things of that nature, some of the business procedures. So we're looking to try to save time and to try to make our processes work better for us. This company Frontline is one that a lot of districts use. Albia is one just up the road that uses it. I used it over in Burlington. It really is a nice benefit to have. It really helps during cold and flu season when you can walk in and you can see how many staff you've got in one spot that are out, how many don't have fill. You can click, you can find all the different people that could sub, you can call them in, and there's a lot of benefits when you're doing evaluations in order to kind of track attendance and everything. So something we're looking at, probably will come to you in that second meeting of the month with some information on it, so we can start to explore this a little bit more deeply. Also, we're looking at how we do background checks. Currently, we have a two-part background check. One that we do through an online system that tracks our, it's called SING, it tracks Iowa background checks. And then we do fingerprinting that does the all states. This process can take a couple weeks to approve a person. And as you know, hiring people is really difficult right now, so when you have a process that's slowing you down for 2 weeks for an hourly person, a lot of times that person could decide in that 2 weeks, hey, this place can hire me tomorrow, so I'm gonna be in. There is a program called BIB, and I meant to write down what it stands for. Here, I'm getting doomed by acronyms. But it is an online thing that tracks both in-state and out-of-state for background checks, and it takes 3 to 5 days for a candidate. So that could cut our time more than in half. So we're still early in looking at that too. I've got a call on Friday that I'm going to take to get some more information on it. But we're just looking to streamline things, make sure we're still doing good background checks, make sure we're doing all the good employment procedures, but making it a little bit easier for our team to do their work and not letting procedures get in the way.
Thank you. All right, board member takeaways. Oh, this is fun. Derek Carter, you're first up.
First off, I don't know how you guys did this via Zoom for these meetings for so long. So roles are reversed. Admin's there and I'm here. I wish I could say it's vacation, but it's our dear friend COVID. So happy to hear all the great things going on in the district. You know, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, still being relatively new, sitting in this room virtually, excited as a parent of kids in the district with what's going on and happy to be a part of it. So that's my takeaway.
Chris.
I have a couple things. The groundbreaking idea that Mike brought up was just brilliant. I love it. I loved it. The fact that you guys are in the room with us, I'm happy for that. I'm glad that you guys are getting along with not only each other, but with Mark, and with all the teachers.
Jeez, Parker.
It definitely shows that, you know, you're a good group, you're together and you're in everything, so it's not big.
Mike.
I would echo much that he said. It does look like the administrative team has really come together. And I hope it is. I mean, it looks good. Okay.
We're like siblings. It's most of the time. It's okay.
But that's okay. You know, I always like a good argument. It gets out lots of different viewpoints. And I feel like there were a lot of good choices made. You know, a lot of good choices made here. And especially glad that Rhonda came back. Okay, she came back. That was a big one. And I'm glad that we split up the buildings and grounds and transportation, because I know that either one of those jobs is a big job that just consumes you every day. It just seems like everything's coming together. We'll see as the year goes along, but right now it looks really good.
Paul.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit different. Saturday night, I was home and it was raining out, but all of a sudden I needed to have a Diet Coke, so I went out to BP. And there was this guy there, 50-year-old guy, said, "God, I haven't seen you for a long time." I said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing okay, but who are you?" Anyway, he identified himself, I knew who he was. His student was not a very good student, but he started talking about how great the teachers were when he was in high school. And several times he said, "I bet teachers today don't care as much as when I was in high school." And we talked about all the teachers and what they're doing, how old they are and all that kind of good stuff a little bit. But he just kept talking about it. He said, I couldn't learn in any class, he said. But those teachers worked and worked and worked, and 30 years later, or more, he graduated 30 years ago, I guess, 91, I think he said. But it was just kind of an interesting experience that he would be excited about seeing me. And then you guys talked all about the caring stuff, and a lot more caring. Well, there's just more knowledge and more information out there about how to do things than I think there was in the in the eighties. And anyway, that meeting him, or re-seeing him again, was kind of a dysfunctional family. Eventually lived with his grandparents, and this kid worked in one of those chicken places down in Missouri, someplace where the line goes faster and faster. He's bailed out, came back here, works at Amcor now, and joined a union, but I could tell he didn't know what a union was. But it was an interesting conversation. I went to get the Coke, but I was there an hour and a half listening. But that happens in my life on a regular basis.
That's hard to believe, Bob.
Anyway, I don't know if I answered your question.
Tim.
Okay. I guess I could sometimes be a pessimist, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic with what I'm seeing. I mean, we look around the room, I haven't even been on the board a year. There's been a tremendous amount of change. And I'm very optimistic with what I'm seeing. At the elementary, the doors open at 7:30, right?
Yeah. But if
My
someone's
kids,
there earlier.
my
we
kids
gotta-
think that we're late if they're not there at 7:30. So I don't know what, you kind of touched on that, maybe that meeting in the morning, but they're excited to go. And I'm bringing them this year. That's so strange. And it's wonderful. It makes the morning much easier. I think we've had one rough morning in 2 weeks. And it's nice to see them excited. So, and they really enjoyed the lunches too.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that's good to me, so.
Just don't camp in the drop-off lane.
What do you say?
What do you say?
Something about the drop off.
Don't camp in.
Don't camp in the drop-off lane. Rock and roll,
Well,
baby.
no one told Kevin that we all kind of had the same, stuff here, because it's supposed to be different, I think, right? I'm gonna echo mine too. From my time on the board, this last couple of months have been the most excited as a board member that I've ever been.
Absolutely.
So, I think the district as a whole, everybody involved, it's just, I think we're in a really, really good place, and I think everyone's 100% on board, and it's working. And it's fun to see, from staff to kids in the stands to everything, just it's fun to see, and as a board member, it makes me very, very happy. On another note, from someone who trains staff sometimes, unbelievable job, safety and security wise on the buildings. Thank you very, very much. That'd be my takeaway. With all that, entertain motion to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Good luck to you.
Mr. Mosley's gonna do a good job for you, I
Seriously, if you want to.
That's where
he's on that. Hey, Rhonda.
Next time I get the.
Okay, all right.
What?
Is it?
I'm looking
Yeah,
here,
I think
that's
so.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much.
I'll go home.